We are back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire, here to talk UFC 253. Our main event, we have two title fights. The main event is Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya taking on Paulo, Błachowicz, or the mind eraser, whatever you want to call him, the human steroid, Paulo Costa. Our co-main event, the light heavyweight title, Dominick the Dominator Reyes taking on, I don't even know Jan Blachowicz' nickname. Does he have one? How do I not know that? Oh, Polish Power. That's right. It's so cheesy. I put it out of my head. Polish Power in the light heavyweight, the vacant light heavyweight title. I am your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper, here to talk all things DraftKings and FanDuel. Yes, all things daily fantasy sports for UFC 253. With me, as always, the co-host, the analyst, the important guys. It is Chris Olsen and Joe, also known as Sun Tzu. Guys, how you doing?
So I have a question, Sean. Does FanDuel have an MMA product?
It's basically a giant turd, but it's there.
Oh my gosh. God, as long as I waited, for FanDuel to come out with a competing product, like, how did they F it up? I mean, really, they had so many opportunities to just kind of like, I will give DraftKings so much props. I mean, aside from, how quickly they make fights official and actually pay people at the end of slates, which, FanDuel takes forever. Like, FanDuel had a blank slate to actually like put a group together and say, what do you guys like about what DraftKings does? What do you guys don't like? They had a blank slate and they could have made such a cool MMA product. I have to really question who they actually listened to when they rolled it out. Like who did they get? Like the 5 people who never played DraftKings MMA? Like, it's such a mess, their product. I don't know.
And DraftKings is still, I have my issues with DraftKings still, as much as I play there. And it's a better product. Dude, we got to get fights up on time.
And Fight Metrics, dude. Like, Fight Metrics is the worst. Like, it kills me. I mean, it's become a real factor in how you look at fights. Like, like when, and again, this is the first time we've met since, the Waterson Hill fight. But, ESPN, the stat provider. I want to
talk about that.
Yeah, gave Michelle Waterson 131 strikes total. DraftKings stats provider, in their ultimate wisdom, decided to give Michelle Waterson 128 significant strikes, right? By 1.5 points, I lost $5,000. That's real money. I mean, that is real money that's affected by how your stat provider reports, significant strikes, among other things. So it's really become a factor in how you got to look at these fights.
Yep. Angel Hill gets that decision. I win the GPP. So I don't want to.
Wow. Well, that would have helped, but
that's none of them. Anyway, enough about that card. Chris, how you doing? By the way,
I'm doing good. I didn't hear that. What? I assume it was a shot at me, but go ahead.
No, I said anything you want to rant about.
Okay. I'm waiting for it. Excuse me. That's my.
But we'll see.
Yeah. I'll bring a little positivity to this.
When you pick Diego Sanchez, I'm gonna then I'll mock you.
No, even Chris can't do that.
That's even beyond my powers. But I do have some dogs coming up. But no, I'm very excited about this main event. I feel like it kind of snuck up on us in terms of like the outside world wasn't really thinking of this as a big fight, but as we get closer, I feel like this is getting a lot of traction. So maybe a good thing to bring outsiders in, and this card in general, I think there's some opportunities, especially dog opportunities. So I'm excited to get into it. Let's do it.
I got 11 fights. Wish it was 12, but it's probably better than the 15, quite honestly. 11 fights. They're at Fight Island, so hopefully we don't have as many crazy cancellations and stuff. We got through weigh-ins. We seem to be okay, knock on wood. So God bless Fight Island. Before we get started, though, make sure you go to rotowire.com/free for a 10-day free trial to all of RotoWire's premium content. No credit card required. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, RotoWire MMA on iTunes. Subscribe to RotoWire on YouTube. Those of you guys who are live, welcome back. Thank you. Wow, there's. I just looked over to the comments to see a lot of you guys in here. Welcome to the usual crew. John's here. Ryan's here. I got Tajik. I got Nan. I got all you guys more in there. So welcome back, guys. Nice to see all of you. Let's talk some goddamn fights. Khadis Ibragimov 8,700. Yeah, he's still in the UFC, and he's a favorite because he's taken on Danilo Marques at 7,500. Khadis is a minus 170 favorite. The comeback on Marques plus 160. Chris, can Ibragimov, who's on a 3-fight losing streak, beat an old trash can fighting up a weight class?
Well, the funny thing about Ibragimov is he actually did try to fight like a normal person in his last fight against Roman Dolidze. He was very cautious. He used a lot of low kicks, and he was still doing his wild flurries, but he was doing them on the counter, sort of like a hair trigger. So Dolidze would throw, and he would automatically try to come back with 3 or 4. It actually was working pretty well until he ducked into Dolidze's knee, and that was the end of the fight. But I don't know. I still can't really pick him at this price. I think Marques, is not anything to write home about, of course, but he does have a nice wrestling game. He is pretty athletic. He tends to keep range pretty well, although I think the one KO loss on his record is him being wiped out by a big counter shot. So that's interesting based on what Ibragimov did in his last fight. But I just can't trust him to keep it together. He could certainly come out and get a KO here, but I'm not going to trust it. I'm not going to pick it, especially we know that he gets tired in fights. So if that fight would have gone on much longer, who knows where his gas tank would have been. I'm gonna trust. I'm using the word trust very lightly here, but I'm gonna trust Marquez's wrestling game and sort of agility in the cage to get it done. And as much as we rightly roll our eyes at these two fighters, there's probably going to be a finish that materializes here one way or another. And we always talk about those contrarian pay-ups, and Ibragimov might just be that, because I don't feel like many people are too excited to take him at 8,700. I don't know if people would be excited to take him at any price, but certainly not for this one. We have seen him go for it, and if he gets it here, he's going to get a lot of points. So I would say have this one rostered, and maybe the contrarian payoff is Ibragimov, but I'm taking Marques.
Joe?
Yeah, so I actually disagree with Chris. I think he's going to be quite popular. Ibragimov. I don't know if you ever heard that old joke like, hey, do you have any naked pictures of your wife? Do you want to buy some? That is probably what Iggy here is holding over Dana White. To get a fight after 3 straight losses, somebody must really like him, or he's got some serious blackmail material on someone. Maybe an illicit affair with an octagon girl. I'm not really sure. But I have to feel that this is finally a layup fight for Iggy that he can actually win. Didn't look horrible in his last fight. They found someone that they could kind of blow the dust off of that he can win. I'm going to have very little exposure to the other side. I am going to read between the lines here in that the UFC is looking for a victory for this guy. I think he's going to be fairly popular for that reason. Give me Iggy here. GPP play only.
Moving on. Oh, God, I don't want to talk about this fight. Okay, deep breath. Compose myself. Juan Espino is a $9,100 favorite. $9,100 for Juan Espino. Minus 290. Comeback on Jeff Hughes is plus 260. 7,100. I'm on the Hughes side just because I think both guys also suck. And I'm more likely to pay 7,100 for Hughes, who will break the slate to win, versus Espino. That being said, like both these guys are going to tell you, we likely get a finish here. So I'm going to have Espino too. I can't ignore him. It's a GPP fight, but for the value, I have to take Hughes. Joe, you and I know you're a big finance guy. You ready to pay 9,100 for Juan Espino?
Unfortunately, I am. I do like him in this spot. I'm not a fan of Hughes. I don't like his game. I don't like his output. Look, it is odd. I agree. There is a lot of narrative around this fight. You win the Ultimate Fighter, and then you don't fight again for 2 years. So what in the H have you been doing? Well, he spent some time in American Top Team. He's done some grappling. We know his wrestling chops. I have not yet watched weigh-ins, but I have heard he looked fine at weigh-ins. Like, did not show any obvious injuries, or just looked good, looked okay at weigh-ins. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Once this fight gets to the ground, it's over for Hughes. Let's be real here. So there is a really defined path to not only victory but an early finish here. I'm not sure how popular he's going to be because of the layoff. I mean, you're going to see a lot more money on Riddell, probably, although I do think that that's a riskier fight. But I really don't see much of a problem here for Espino. I mean, it's not like he's been, taking a 2-year siesta. He has been doing some work. He has spent some time at ATT. He has been doing some grappling competitions. So I like Espino here. And look, for any other weight class, 39 is old, except for heavyweight, So I'm not that put off by his age. I do think it's odd that he felt he could make more money not fighting in the UFC for the last 2 years. Maybe he's independently wealthy. Who knows? But I'll take Espino here, and I've got him by finish.
Chris?
So yeah, I agree with basically everything Joe said. I'm gonna actually add some info here. He was dealing with a hand injury for at least some of that time.
Oh, right.
I don't know, and I think it was a pre-existing injury that he decided to get taken care of. So
you're right, Chris. I think he broke both hands. That's a good catch. He broke.
Yeah.
Both hands.
But yeah, I agree with Joe. I think that if you're an undersized heavyweight, you got to have something that's gonna set you apart. Like if you have surprising power, if you can really use your speed, if you're a good technician, if you're a really good grappler. Jeff Hughes has none of these things. So Espino is probably gonna just wrestle him, and the size advantage for a wrestler at heavyweight here is gonna be really really noticeable. And I think that Espino, he's very singularly minded. Jeff Hughes doesn't have the kind of power to change the course of the fight with one shot. Again, nothing really to differentiate himself. And Espino is, as Joe said, in any other weight class, maybe you'd be in trouble. But if you've got physicality and you can wrestle and grapple, I like your chances at heavyweight to at least get in the top 15. I mean, that's really how it is. So I think that Espino is the play here. I don't see how Jeff Hughes survives. I guess he's got a puncher's chance in the sense that everybody does, but I really don't like any part of his game, and Espino at least has one thing he can do that's above average, so I'm rolling with that, and I'm taking Espino here.
Moving on, Aleksa Camur, 8,600, taking on William. I've never done a steroid in my life. Knight at 7,600. I say that because he really did say that in an interview today. People were accusing him of it, and he was like, no. He was not pleased. As if you're falsely accused and put in the work, I could imagine. Doesn't look like it, but what do I know? I'm sitting here on my couch. Anyway, Aleksa Camur is minus 152. William Knight is plus 142. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 265. It's another great GPP fight. I think Aleksa Camur is the much better prospect all around. I think he can specifically get takedowns and win this fight that way. I'm pretty high on him for his minus 150 line. Chris, is this one of your dogs? Are we going head to head here?
It's one of my dogs, but it's not. I'm not very strong either way. Like if you wanted to give me a strong argument for Camur, I wouldn't argue too much. I think that both of these guys are sort of formless and don't really have a sustained plan in the cage. Camur likes to do a bunch of spinning attacks, and I picked him in that fight against Justin Ledet, and I was pretty confident about it. He won that fight, but didn't look really good doing it. Got tired, dropped at least one round, was eating left hooks all over the place. As you say, Sean, the wrestling is a big problem for William Knight. We saw that on the Contender Series, where if it wasn't for the grace of God and Herb Dean not standing him up, but warning the opponent while he was in back mount, forcing him to move and creating a scramble for Knight, he almost certainly loses that fight. As it is, he gets his win, and now he's here. and we did see Camur get a late takedown against Ledet there. I can't trust him to do that as a strategy, so I'm not going to. I think that at least William Knight has more consistent offense on the feet, and he's not going to take breaks. He's not just going to look for spinny, rangy things from a mile away. I really think that all Knight really wants to do is get in the pocket and throw bombs, but I'm going to trust that more than some guy who wants to just throw spinny things and maybe watch his work a little too much. So I'm very, very shyly taking Knight here. I think this one ends in a finish too. I feel like we said this for well, actually, I mean, I don't think you have to have a lot of Jeff Hughes, but Sean would agree with me. But I think that this is another one of those fights where you should have both sides because it's probably going to be over quickly. But yeah, I'm taking William Knight to get this done.
Really?
Yeah, clearly I disagree. If Knight is going to stand and trade, or if Camur is going to stand and trade, I'm going to feel less good than I did at the start of the fight. Like, he needs to just grapple.
Yeah.
I think he's had a very clear path to victory here. Joe.
So Knight is one of those guys that looks good getting off the bus. I mean, you know, like, he looks really good, and you look at this guy and you're like, holy crap, this guy's a killer. He's got about 1 round of cardio. I mean, you know, he's not the smartest fighter in the world. Camur is the better prospect. Did not look great against Justin Ledet, which is maybe why some of the shine is taken off of him. But I really do think that if he fights smart, he will be able to beat Knight. I'm thinking maybe a finish in the second round, maybe the early third round. I like him here a little bit. I game planned this fight in my head, and I really saw Knight coming out really hot and heavy, and for that reason, you should have shares of him in GPPs. You know, coming out really hot and heavy, looking for the finish, getting really frustrated, and then in the second round, the momentum shifts, and Camur just, you know, goes out there and you know, either, you know, completely befuddles him and gets a finish, or just, you know, wears him down over 3 rounds. I'll take Camur here.
All right, moving on. We have, I gotta get this name right, Ľudovít Klein at 8,300, taking on Shane Young at 7,900. Line on this fight now. Let's see where the movement's gone. Klein up to a -122 favorite. Come back on Young +112. This is an interesting fight because inside the distance here, because I think it was a good one too. Yeah, inside that does not go to decision, -150. You know, early in the week, Klein was an underdog, saw a lot of love. I like Klein as well. He's my pick. And all of a sudden, people are saying, I've seen all these people touting Klein, and then all of a sudden, I've seen the other side going, this is getting out of hand. Why does everybody love Klein so much? And I've seen a ton of people now on Young. So it's weird, kind of back and forth. I like Klein in this one. I think he's just the better prospect. I think, you know, either one of these guys could put the other ones down. I think Klein is a little bit sharper, but I'm pretty sure Joe disagrees. So we'll start with Joe.
Yeah, I mean, look, Klein has fought, you know, some sketchy competition and a sketchy promotion. Yes, I'll give him that his last win was a good win. You know, you love to see a head kick knockout, but I mean, he beat a 60-year-old Brazilian, and it took him 3 rounds to do it. You know, this guy, you know, Rodriguez that he fought was 39, 20, and 2. Can you imagine how old you have to be to have 61 fights in MMA? And was 39 when he, you know, again, officially 39. I'd be shocked if this guy was not, you know, the wrong side of 40 when this fight actually happened. And, you know, he was on quite a streak in that, you know, he lost the 3 fights after he fought Klein. So he was obviously on the decline, no pun intended.
That was terrible.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Look, Young is tough. I like Young. I think Young is growing. Comes from the, you know, camp du jour at City Kickboxing. Everybody is saying here, and watch out, guys. Everybody is saying, you know, he's the weak link in the City Kickboxing. I couldn't disagree more. Like, I mean, this guy went up against Volkanovski on short notice in his debut in the UFC, and he lasted 3 rounds with Volkanovski. If he can fight,
was he fighting at City Kickboxing at that time?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Because
then you get one of those weird sparring partners.
Well, right,
I'm not accusing it.
Yeah, maybe Volkanovski carried him. That's fair, Sean. That's
just popped in my head.
No, it's a fair point. I thought about that as well. This guy is tough. I mean, he is really, really tough. He's never been finished. His losses are all by decision. You could argue that the competition he fought wasn't great either, but at least they were UFC fighters. I never even heard of the promotion that Klein has fought in. So look, I think that at 7.9K, he should be owned. Now, will he be owned? Probably not. And he is not the weak link. The weak link in the City Kickboxing, stable of fighters on this slate is coming up. It's not Shane Young. So if you're fading Shane Young here, thinking he's the weak link of all the City Kickboxing fighters, you're really doing him a disservice and yourself. I really do like Shane Young here. I don't know whether he's going to get it finished. This might legitimately be the first decision of the night, but at 7.9K, give me that. I really like that.
Chris.
So just looking at so Ludwig also missed by 4, so we got 2 guys who missed by 4 pounds on his card?
Yes. Yep.
That's
I think
crazy.
5 pounds was the Turk.
Oh, he was wow, okay.
No, it was 4.
So
he was 150.
wow.
Okay.
All right, so that's interesting. I agree with Joe.
We got to talk about that later too. Good God.
Yeah. I agree with Joe. I mean, I like Shane Young a lot too, just in general. I love his style. Come forward, throw a bunch of strikes, work the body a lot, especially those jabs to the body, and just really try to break the opponent. So I actually really love the style that he brings, and I am picking him here. But I do think Klein is a dangerous fighter. Even more dangerous than maybe I thought when I first looked at him. I think he's a really powerful kickboxer. Now, he doesn't do that much. He loves his 1-2 head kick. He's got a couple of head kick knockouts, if I'm not mistaken. He loves to hide that head kick behind a 1-2. He's good. He's good at sprawling out on takedowns. He's nice and strong, but I just like Shane Young. I think the style works here. I think that Young is going to smother those kicks with his pressure. Now, we've seen Shane Young eat a bunch of shots from not-so-great competition. Austin Arnett, he was taking shots. Not very hard shots. He was never in trouble in that fight, so I don't want to paint it like it was a huge problem. But he was eating some shots, and, taking some shots from Klein might be a more dangerous prospect. So this is a really interesting fight to me. I was kind of on the fence one way or the other. In general, though, I love Young's style, as I said, and I think that he should definitely be owned because he's going to put his volume up. So if he wins, even in a decision, he could sniff 100 very easily. I like Shane Young here. I think that Klein should be owned in what I think is going to be a really good fight, maybe an underrated Lee, if that's a word, good fight on the prelims. But yeah, my pick is Young.
All right, moving on. Next fight up, we have Jake Matthews at 9,400 taking on Diego Sanchez at 6,800. Diego, I almost fought Conor McGregor 6 months ago. Sanchez,
yeah,
you guys saw that story too. I'm throwing up a lot of articles from my Twitter scrolling today in our episode. Jake Matthews, the reason I'm throwing that stuff in is a minus 705 favorite, minus 800 at some books. Come back on Diego's plus 570. That pretty much describes the fight pretty well. Mm-hmm. So in terms of how we should approach it from DraftKings, we'll kick it to these guys. Chris.
I think Phil McKenzie had a good tweet that Conor McGregor has the toughest imagined strength of schedule that you could possibly have. He always has a story about how he almost fought this one and almost fought that one, except something happened. So Conor McGregor apparently never turns down a fight except when he does. But as far as this fight goes, what could you possibly expect from Diego Sanchez these days? Even in the recent past, if it's a Diego Sanchez fight, you could be like, hey, at least I know he's going to come forward with abandon and he's going to look for his takedowns. So, even in that kind of strategy, it would be a problem because I think with strong grapplers, he has trouble, as we saw with Chiesa. But we don't even know that he's going to do that. I mean, against Pereira, he just like backed himself up against the fence immediately, had that weird guard where he just stuck out one of his arms. And, maybe he'll get lucky, and Jake Matthews will also knee him while he's on the ground. And then he'll pick up another win here. But as far as like Jake Matthews is he's just the guy who does everything a little too well. He's got power on the feet. He's a decent boxer. He's a strong grappler, as I said. So I don't see what Diego's going to do here. I think this is I think Jake Matthews is going to win this fight any way he wants to. It might not be a finish. We've seen Diego. I mean, these chins are weird. Sometimes they look like they're gone. Sometimes they look like they're back. Diego looks like he might be tough again. Then again, he hasn't really taken a shot from a guy like Jake Matthews in the way that he can deliver it. So I like Jake Matthews a lot here. The pay-up is the only question. But, yeah, Matthews wins going away.
Joe.
Yeah. So I think Matthews should be a staple in your cash lineups. He's expensive. There are ways to get him in. I do like him a fair amount here. Diego was on his way to getting finished before the knee, and that was just really a weird fight. I'm not really sure what the matchmakers thought when they put this together. I mean, even though Matthews is only 26, he's got a fair amount of experience, octagon experience. Obviously, Diego is older than dirt in UFC fight years, but I like Matthews a fair bit here. I'd be surprised if he didn't get a finish. Give me Matthews. Cash game staple.
Moving on, Brad Riddell, 9,200, take on Aleksa Silva at 7,000. Line in this fight, Riddell is now a minus 290 favorite. Come back on to Silva, plus 260. Interesting fight to me, Joe, because I do think Riddell is the better fighter, better prospect. Like he should win this fight. That's why he's a minus 290 favorite. But the Silva, as much as I don't like him, and I keep coming back to, I've been thinking about it all day. He's got, for an underdog, he's such a defined path to victory in that Riddell can be taken down, and De Silva, if he can control him, like the path is there. I don't see it happening, but it's one of those underdogs that when you can constantly see a clear path, it's hard for me to totally ignore. So I'm trying to talk myself into more De Silva than I was 48 hours ago. Talk me off the ledge or encourage me.
Riddell is not only a city kickboxing guy, but I also believe he's their striking coach. There's definitely a path to victory for our friend Silva here. Honestly, not one of my, it's a GPP dart, right? I don't like it
right
in any other way. It's, if you can make a case, like I was just, I'm stalling to actually pull up, some recent fight statistics on our boy here. Here he goes. Okay. So the guy is 21-2. Like he's got a really good record here. Astra Fight Team, it's an okay camp, Brazilian camp. He's big. He's 5'10". He's got a 73-inch reach, but that Yakovlev fight was not a good look. Getting choked out by Yakovlev in the second round is not a good look. And look, he did what he was supposed to do against Vargas. He was minus 300 going into that fight against Vargas, right? And then he's just fought in like these weird promotions like the Serbian Battle Championship and Aspra FC 57 and Brave C5. He's kind of been all over the map. For a kid that's only 24 years old, the guy's got 23 fights. So can he improve? Sure. But you have to believe that Riddell is a guy that the UFC wants to get behind. He obviously has a defined path to victory. That's keeping the fight standing. However, he can be taken down. So I'm not going to talk you out of putting him into your ownership pool, especially if you're playing mass entry. You should definitely have, percentages based on whatever you feel ownership is going to be. You should be at market on De Silva. I'm going to pick Riddell to win, but I'm certainly going to have shares of De Silva or Lecco in my GPP lineups.
Chris.
So yeah, this is. I'm going to be a little bit more definitive here. This line's too wide. It just is. And I like Brad Riddell. I think he's a great striker. He's got power. And look, Alexander Yakovlev. Say what you want about him. He's got his grappling chops. He's. I think he's a Sambo champion, something like that. So it's not like there's no danger when you go to the ground with him. Certainly he imposes more danger than somebody like Riddell would. In any case, but yeah, I like De Silva here as the dog play. I think he's very athletic. You guys mentioned his grappling chops. He's also got a nice kicking game that I really like. We saw Mustafayev was really hitting Brad Riddell with those body kicks in that fight, and I think that De Silva is going to be able to control here a lot better than Mustafayev. De Silva is very good at finding the back, very good at floating on top. I think that skill set's going to be there too. Look, De Silva is going to have to fade the power of Riddell here. There's no question about it. And that 21-2 record, we don't know the quality of all those opponents to be sure, but he's still been in there 23 times. He still has that veteranship. I'm sure he's faced powerful fighters before. I don't think he's just going to melt in the face of somebody who wants to pressure him and sort of hit him with big shots. I think that De Silva is a nice play here. I think that he's going to get this done. I think he's going to get him down. Whether he's going to hold him down is the big question. I think he can. I think a sub is not out of the question, but I do like De Silva for the win.
All right, moving on. Zubaira Tukhugov, 8,200, taking on Hakeem Dawodu at 8,000. Line on this fight, Tukhugov minus 137, come back on Dawodu plus 127. Tukhugov misses weight by 4 pounds and then flexes. That being said, as much as I think he's a douchebag, I think he's got a pretty clear path to victory here. I think he can take down Dawodu. I think Dawodu's a little overhyped. I like the value on Tukhugov, and it's a mid-range fight, so it has to be strongly considered. Chris.
Yeah, I still like Dawodu here. I mean that whole narrative is, of course, something to consider. It's not going to make me change my pick. I think that Dawodu is he got sort of first impressions are everything, right? So he got sort of tarred with this brush. He got that really bad loss to Danny Henry, where Henry caught him with a strike and then subbed him. It happens 4 in a row since then, including Julio Arce, who is no scrub. So I like a lot of what I see from Dawodu. He's lightning fast. He's a good kickboxer. He's got a strong takedown defense. I think it's like 85%. So we'll see how that plays here. But Tukhugov's just a little too limited for me. On the feet, he loves to try to cover distance and throw those left hooks. It certainly worked out against Kevin Aguilar. But Dawodu is a guy who's much better at keeping distance. I think that he will. I think that he's going to be able to stuff these takedowns or at least get back to his feet, but it's the X factor. I don't think he's ever faced a guy who's going to be, we think anyway, because Tukhugov, it would imply, right, the fact that he missed by that much, that he's going to use a wrestling game plan. But we've seen sort of fights where it goes on and off. Sometimes he's very wrestling heavy. Sometimes he's not. We would tend to think that he will be, but we're going to have to see. I still think that overall, Dawodu has much better skills, the much better skill set, and skills win fights. So my pick is Dawodu.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Turk here to beat Dudu in this fight. As far as I'm concerned, Dudu has been an underachiever, in the UFC. Hasn't been overly impressive to me. I don't know if it's, he just is not aggressive enough. Again, this is another guy, he's an 11-1-1 Canadian fighter that looks good when he gets off the bus. But I don't know if it's just he doesn't have a killer instinct. He's made lesser fighters or guys with lesser skill sets look good. Again, Austin Burnett split decision over Kyle Bochniak. He was a minus 400 favorite against Ori, and it took him like 3 rounds to finish him. The win against Arce was a good win, but it was a split decision win. I'm not gonna, do cartwheels over a split decision win against Julio Arce, who I believe is no longer in the UFC. I don't think Ori is. I'm pretty sure Austin Arnett isn't. Bochniak, I think, might still be in the UFC, but I'm not really sure. But, this guy he's had a lot of hype, and he's been, a fairly significant favorite in most of his fights. Minus 510 Arnett, minus 200 Bochniak, minus 400 Ori. Last fight he was minus 120, so he's been a favorite in all 4 of his fights. Yes, he's gotten the win, but, I think he's been a much better play for just pure betting versus DraftKings. And then we got our friend the Turk here, who is 19-4-1. He's coming off his quote-unquote, time off period for, he had a time off period for that melee. Lost a split decision to Renato Moicano, which, again, was not a bad look. Yes, he beat some cream puffs prior to that, but, Murphy has turned out to be a really good fighter. Had a draw against Murphy and just nuked Kevin Aguilar. Now, I'm not expecting him to nuke, Dudu and put up 125 points like he did, but I certainly like him. I like his price. I know there's a bit of a risk here because this could be a really kind of, boring, slow-paced fight because Dudu does not really like to engage. So I'm going to take the Turk here. I'm going to take a flyer on him. I like him. I think he's got a pretty decent ceiling. So give me the Turk.
Somebody's out there counting. Please let me know how many times Joe just said doo-doo. Moving on. Ketlen Vieira, 8,800, taking on Sijara Eubanks at 7,400. Vieira is the favorite, minus 185. Sarge, plus 160. Joe was talking to you about this. I got to snap myself out of underselling Sijara Eubanks since this move to bantamweight. I still think Ketlen Vieira is better, but I'm nowhere near writing off Sarge. I think this fight is lined a little wider than it should be, even if I'm favoring Ketlen, which makes Sarge a play in all formats. And even if Vieira wins on DraftKings, hard to get at that price range. So, Joe, kick it to you. Chris, just go right to you after I got to run and take care of the daughter real quick.
Yes. So I actually, look, I like Sarge. Vieira is coming off of a fairly brutal knockout against Irene Aldana. Not like the worst look in the world. Aldana is, going to be fighting for a title soon. And I've always been really high on Aldana. But, there's a little bit of narrative, around this fight too. Now, I heard that, Ketlen Vieira was having an issue with getting her coach, into the U.S. She's a Novo União fighter. For those of you that are not like diehards like me and Chris and Sean, Novo União was the bomb gym in Brazil. I mean, they put a ton of money into like facilities and training and coaching. And then what happened? You ask? USADA. This is a gym that fell off the cliff, proverbially, because of USADA. It is like now just sort of a casual mention, although the facility is still really nice. The men fighters seem to be more affected than the female fighters. But, she's a Novo União fighter. Again, that vicious knockout, has had some fights canceled. I'm not really sure if she's had any injuries or not. I would have liked her more against Marion Renault. But look, I like Sarge. I mean, Sarge I was on her, truth be told, against the Raging Panda. I thought that was a really good spot for her. People are making, the narrative about her weight issues is really overblown because those were issues at 125, not bantamweight, right? So at bantamweight, she, as far as I can tell, she hasn't had any weight issues. And, she's coming off of 2 pretty solid wins. And, she's always in it for a firefight, has never been finished, has got some good ground credentials, Brazilian jiu-jitsu credentials. Yes, she's giving up some height, but I really don't believe the reach that she's giving up all that much in reach. Let's see. Okay, so she's giving up 4 inches in height, but she's only giving up 1 inch in reach, right? I really I think at the price point, I'm going to pick Sarge to get the upset here, and I think she's kind of viable in GPPs. So I'll take Eubanks.
Chris?
Yeah, This is another thing for me where not so much the first impressions, but maybe there was an impression with Eubanks that left a bad taste in people's mouths. I'm thinking specifically of the loss to Bechkohea, where she looked good in the first round and then sort of gassed out and gave that fight away. She looked really good against Avila down the stretch, and that was a fight that had a lot of grappling in it. So if I'm going to say whether it's fixed or not, I'm saying that maybe the conditioning issues aren't completely in the rearview mirror, but it's not really something I'm worried about. And when you look at somebody like Ketlen Vieira, I mean, the bottom line is all of her best wins are against these old guard Ronda Rousey era fighters, Kat Zingano, Sarah McMahon, Ashley Evans Smith, who's still here, but I mean, her best days are clearly behind her. And then the first time she steps up to fight this new breed, quote unquote, who can do a little bit of everything. Adesanya can do a little bit more of a little bit. I mean, she's a really good boxer, but I'm saying, I mean, a lot of those wins are just like McMahon and Zingano. Those are the pure grapplers, right? And Sarge is a really good, solid technical boxer. She's got some power. She's a little bit slow, a little bit stiff. I think not Aldana. I think Vieira definitely has the hand speed. I knew I would remember her name. But she's also extremely wild. She's got two settings. When she's leading, she's sort of just throwing big overhands, and when she's countering, she's basically just flurrying. And I think Sarge has a tight enough boxing game to really find that left hook, maybe in the same exact way Aldana did. I wouldn't put it past her. And in the grappling department, look, Sarge she's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. She's got a black belt at Worlds. She's got a couple of gold medal at Worlds in black belt, I should say. She's got a couple other medals there too, some silvers at brown belt. So she's a very accomplished Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. I'm actually hoping this fight hits the ground because I want to see it play out, but I certainly don't think she's at a major disadvantage there if she's at one at all. I think she's the more technical fighter, and now that the gas tank issues have at least largely been ironed out, I'm actually pretty high on Sarge here. I like her to get this done.
Yeah, Chris, I think I pretty much evolved as a co-host. I really came very close when you said she's a little stiff to commenting that's what she said, but yeah. I completely let it go. I didn't say it. I'm turning over a new leaf as a co-host on this show.
And we just lost viewers. No, people are here for sex jokes. That's what they're here for.
Okay.
They're here for the Vaseline and lotion jokes. Vaseline.
I will not rein myself in. Chris, that's what she said.
There you go. I like it. All right.
I have such high hope for you, Joe. Such
Thank
high
you.
hope.
Well, we're going to get Joe even more fired up because I know he has a strong stance in this next fight. Kai Kara France, 8,900, taking on Brandon Royval at 7,300. France, it's 8,900. That is a big price tag for his style. He is a minus 215 favorite. The comeback on Royval plus 195. Royval did not look good against Tim Elliott until Tim Elliott ran out of gas. Weigh-ins, I was surprised how much bigger Royval was than France today, so that was interesting. Joe?
Yeah, so you want to know the weak link in City Kickboxing? Here it is. It's Kai Kara France, who has the odd nickname of the finisher, which he is not, obviously. Look, yes, Royval didn't look great, and Tim Elliott is a top-notch fighter who, seemingly with purpose, only has one round of cardio, and is a bonus hunter, and he did what he does. He could not get the finish. Completely gassed. Royval caught him in a sub. Now, what I like about Royval is that he took that bonus that he received for finishing, Tim Elliott, and also he won my friend Paul, $391,000 in the inaugural Millie Maker. So I will always remember Brandon Royval. But he took that and he quit his day job. So this is his first fight in the UFC where he has had full time to train as a fighter. No day job, no hauling groceries. Again, I'm not sure what he was doing actually, but no day job, full-time fighter. I think he has got actually more paths to victory here. I mean, the one path to victory that, Kai Kara France has, and it's not, not that it's not compelling, is essentially to win by decision. Okay, great. Sean mentioned the size difference. I do think that, especially later in the fight, that some grappling exchanges can work in Royval's favor here. I really do like him in this spot. I think he's an incredible value. I think anyone who decides to bet on Kai Kara-France at minus 200 is a little bit nuts. Again, this guy has got a 3-fight win streak. I love that he's training at Factory X. The Cardio Kings and great training partners. So like I will stack Factory X up against City Kickboxing, every day and twice on Sunday. Give me Royval here to upset, at a dog price, using his size, using grappling exchanges, to finish the City Kickboxing weak link, Kai Kara-France.
Chris.
Yeah, I think that the reason why Royval was able to look so good against Elliott is because Elliott can't really do anything on the feet. He wants to grapple, and that's where Royval is the strongest. I mean, he's excellent in these scrambles, as we saw. But Kai Kara-France has dealt with a lot of those fighters. He beat Mark De La Rosa. He didn't beat Brandon Moreno, but Brandon Moreno didn't take him down. He beat Elias Garcia. These are 3 fighters who use their jiu-jitsu primarily, and none of them could sub France. And as memory serves, he did quite well on the ground when he was there against Elias Garcia. So I really think that Royval is just going to be sort of on an island on the feet here. I did note, even in my review of the Tim Elliott fight, that Royval hangs his chin up in the pocket. And I recall saying that if Tim Elliott was a big puncher or a bigger puncher, that would be a problem. Kai Kara-France might not be the biggest puncher in the world. He's a bigger threat than Tim Elliott, certainly. So I don't really like the spot for Royval, just because I don't think that he's going to get as much purchase on his jiu-jitsu as he did against Tim Elliott. If he was able to get it to the ground, I have confidence that he could out-scramble most of the fighters in this division. I don't think it's going to get there. I think it's going to stay on the feet, and I think Royval's in trouble there. So give me Kai Kara-France.
Moving on, co-main event time. Dominick Reyes, 9,000, taking on Jan Błachowicz at 7,200. Reyes, minus 245, comeback on Błachowicz, plus 225. Fight does not go to decision, minus 205. I'm on the Reyes side here. Somebody made a great tweet earlier. I'm going to reference another one. Can you imagine we could Saturday night, we could have a UFC light heavyweight champion who was lost to Patrick Cummings. We could see it. Chris, how do you have it?
I think I'm in the majority here, which is a spot I don't like to be, but I'm naturally contrarian. But I have to say that I like Dominick Reyes here. I just think he's going to use that length. He's going to use his superior kickboxing. It'll be interesting to me if Jan uses his wrestling. We don't see it a lot, but when we do see it, it tends to come in bunches. He's got fights with 4 takedowns. I think he has another one in there with multiple takedowns. But, it's few and far between. I'll be interested to see if he goes to it here. Jan has really just sort of reinvented himself with basically a jab and a left hook. And I don't think that's going to be enough against a guy who is a really good boxer in his own right. And it appears to, know what he's doing on the ground, although it's probably a work in progress. But, I just don't see Jan having enough tools to get this done. I don't think, just being able to sit behind the jab is going to be enough here, as it has been in the past. I don't think it's not going to be like an opportunistic situation where he's just going to catch him off of a clinch with his hands down like a Luke Rockhold. I think that the Jan Błachowicz surge here, as impressive as it has been, has relied on a few fringe things that just aren't going to be available to him in this fight. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish Jan. Jan is pretty legendarily tough. Thiago Santos did it, but that's just kind of what Thiago Santos does. So, I think that Jan Błachowicz is just going to be outgunned here. Again, if he goes to the wrestling, that'll be a little bit more interesting. If he doesn't, I expect that Reyes will just pick him apart on the feet until the final bell sounds or we do get a finish. So I'm going Reyes.
Joe.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I'm pretty much completely aligned with Chris here. I mean, I like Reyes. I think that, Polish power, Jan Błachowicz, has got a puncher's chance. We've seen it before. We've seen him, nuke some guys that were either chinny or at the tail end of their careers. I do like Reyes here. Look, I mean, if he fights a smart fight, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't win this. I do believe, and again, we'll talk about this when we give our hot takes. I do see this as a fight, going beyond the 2.5 round total put up. And I think there's certainly a wagering opportunity there if you don't want to pick a side. And it's a very profitable one. But I am going to pick Reyes here.
All right, moving on. It's our main event. Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya, 8,500. Taking on, I'm going to repeat all the nicknames. Paulo Bohashino, or the Mind Eraser, or Captain Steroid. Costa at 7,700. A line in this fight, Israel Adesanya minus 175. Come back on Costa plus 165. I'm in a really weird spot in that I have picked against Adesanya a bunch. Just when I saw how close Marvin Vettori was and takedown stuff and just what I thought were bad matchups, I seem to have been off of Adesanya when everyone else was on. And now I'm hopping on and everyone else is hopping. People are hopping off taking Costa. And I just think this is a bad matchup for Costa. Costa's, outside of Yoel Romero, hasn't fought anybody really great. Uriah Hall gave him fits with the jab before he was able to finish that fight. So, if Uriah Hall is beating you up with the jab, what do you think Israel Adesanya is going to do to you? Costa's got to get this fight to the ground, and then I'm worried about the gas tank. I just see Izzy picking him apart in space here, and it's weird to see Adesanya at 8.5K, and I'm finally on him, and everyone else is off. So that's how I had this fight. Who we start with? I think Chris, you're up for the main event.
Yeah. So I think space is the key word, Sean. I just don't think that Costa is going to give him much of that. Costa is by far the most consistent smothering pressure fighter that Adesanya has ever fought, and I do think that if you try to smother him with pressure, you can freeze him a little bit because he needs that space. We saw it in the Gastelum fight. We even saw it a little bit in the Vettori fight. Now, Adesanya fights have been weird because we've seen people try to fight him in really odd, specific ways. Like the Derek Brunson fight, yeah, I guess that's pressure, but it's so weird and frantic that it's not really what we're talking about here. Same with the Whitaker fight, really, where he just tried to just throw those big looping shots that a guy who can move as well as Adesanya is just going to see coming a mile away and counter. And he can still get his countering opportunities here. I just think that, I just think that Costa is, I think he's been a little underrated since he's gotten here. I think he's just always been the guy where people are like, yeah, big muscle head, but that's it. But I think there's more to his game than that. I think he's really good at cutting off the cage as a pressure fighter. I think that he's really good at throwing in his body work, especially those uppercuts to the body and those body kicks that we saw a lot in the Yoel Romero fight. If you look at the Kelvin Gastelum fight, I mean, it was kind of back and forth, but I would argue that a lot of the best shots in that fight came from Gastelum until the 5th round where Gastelum just got tired and Adesanya was able to completely take it over. Now that could happen here. We saw Boachinia gas out a little bit in the 3rd round of the Yoel Romero fight, but that was a really high-paced fight. And I think that Boachinia is going to control this pace here. I think that's the way Izzy fights. Izzy wants you coming in so that he can look for opportunities to counter you. And as far as the jab goes, I'm not here to say that Uriah Hall has a better jab than Israel Adesanya, but it's definitely harder. It's definitely a more purposeful punch. I think that the Adesanya jab, as far as we've seen it so far, is basically just to keep space, maybe set up other attacks. The Uriah Hall jab is really like a purpose punch. And even then, he just sort of walked through it and said, okay. And look, it's so funny in that Uriah Hall fight. A minute after Uriah Hall hurt him, the fight was over, and Costa had won it. So that's sort of what we need to know about how Costa deals with adversity. He's just going to keep coming unless he really gets cracked, which he could, and certainly not ruling it out. I love this fight. I think it's going to be super interesting, but I'm taking Costa here just to be too much with his pressure and his power and his variety of his striking. So give me Costa.
Joe?
Yeah, so Sean, you and I are in the same boat. You know this. I mean, I have pretty much faded Izzy in every fight since Marvin Vettori nearly finished him, or I should say wrestle left him. I've been off Adesanya. I always thought he was overrated, and now I find myself on Adesanya against the Ricky Martin wannabe. I think that's what he called him. Yeah, it scares me a little bit, and I kind of just feel a little sick with myself and a little dirty at the same time. But I really do like Izzy here in this fight, and it's hard to admit. And if this is the one fight where Izzy, it's the MMA gods say, this is what you get for fading him all the way until now, I suppose I'll have to live with it. But I really do think that Izzy is the better fighter here. I think he's the smarter fighter. I think he has the highest fight IQ. I do like him here. I will have shares of both sides of this fight in GPPs, but I don't think it's a very stackable fight. But if I was going to pick one of the fighters to play in cash, that would be Izzy. So I do also like the over 2.5 rounds in this fight as well. But I'll take Izzy.
All right, guys, it is hot takes time. If you're new, hot takes are, unowned play, something unexpected we think will happen, could potentially win you a GPP, or in Joe's case, I think he's going to throw out a prop, make you a bunch of money. Before we get to that, I'll do the ending, the read quick. Make sure, actually, the podcast, as you guys know, brought to you by RotoWire. I have to thank them. Go to rotowire.com/free for a 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. Like, comment, subscribe to the video on YouTube. It is under RotoWire is the channel. The iTunes to subscribe to the podcast is RotoWire MMA. I'm at sniper_DFS. Chris is at Real Chris Olsen. Joe is at Sun Tzu. That being said, I'll kick off the hot takes and we'll take some viewer ones as well. Jeff Hughes, winner by knockout.
Oh my goodness.
Because Juan Espino gasses himself out trying to wrestle in the first round. Hughes gets the second round knockout.
All right. All right, I'll go. Sijara Eubanks finds that left hook in an exchange and knocks out Ketlen Vieira for the win.
Joe, give us that parlay. I
okay,
know it's
so so this is not very sexy, but if you feel like I feel, where both of these, the main and the co-main are going to go over 2.5 rounds, which I do believe, it's a pretty sweet plus 189 parlay. So I bet 1,000 and change in order to win 2,000 on this parlay. I really do like it. Look, anything can happen. It's MMA, but I do think that both fights will go north of 2.5 rounds, and that's what I'll be rooting for here. So that's my quasi hot take.
All right, looking into the crowd real quick, we got Ryan Barton. Both title fights go to decision.
Is that hot? I don't know.
Yeah, both of them going to decision. Yeah, they're both like minus 250 to finish.
Oh, they are even. Okay, yeah. All right.
John Tiller, Royval, second round submission. Specific there, I like it. Rob, get the.
I'm still putting it up because
Sanchez by KO and fights Connor. If that happens, I'll fight you, Rob. or a parking lot somewhere. We can fight for some money. All right, guys, that's what we got. An hour pretty much on the nose. Love it. Nice to see you guys for a pay-per-view. Enjoy the fights. Make some money. Good luck in your contests. See you next time.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.